There are many ways to scratch your paint.
Hi, I'm Ivan.
I'm Nick.
And this is the DIY Detail Podcast. Today we're going to dive into wash techniques that could scratch your paint. And we're going to talk about ones that won't scratch your paint or will reduce that possibility to the least amount.
Yeah, here's the wild thing. You could get keyed in the parking lot. You could drive through a bunch of tree branches. We're not even talking about all the other ways to scratch your paint. We're actually talking about the ways that detailers or a car washer or during the car wash process or drying, cars get scratched. And then how not to do that, Ivan.
Correct, yeah. Now, the first part of it is pre-treating your surface. And depending on where you're from in the world, there are places in the world where they use a specific foam as a pre-treat, and then they'll use another foam in their bucket and another foam in their foam cannon. That to me is a bit of overkill. But the idea of pre-treating the surface is a great one. And it's one that we've taught since the beginning. We jokingly started calling it the foam rinse foam method, and the term is stuck. But basically what we're doing, we're not taking the pressure washer and spraying on that dirt. We're letting a surfactant break it down first, whether it be foam from Incredible Suds or our rinseless wash. Your choice, it's up to you. It doesn't need to be foam, it just needs to be a chemical sprayed on the surface. Now, in a very, very extreme case, and we've done a video on this, where a truck was literally covered and caked on mud. This is a person that loves off-roading their Land Rover. They did so with joy, and it was covered in mud. We did spray it with water first, but on a mist setting, no pressure, just to get that mud rehydrated or wet again so that it would accept the soap a little better. Because if you're putting soap on a very dry mud, there's not enough moisture, especially with a foam cannon situation, there's not enough moisture to dive into that soap. So in this case, we
dive into that mud or that soap?
Yeah, to dive into the mud. Sorry,
okay,
thank you.
Got it. No,
Yeah, there's not enough moisture there to dive into the mud. So by pre-spraying it, and again, it was just a mist, we allow it to go in. Now, on an extreme case like that, yes, we did go to an extreme because we used all clean as well. And there's a lot of these pre-spray foams that are designed, you don't wash with them, you only pre-spray, that are either very alkaline or very acidic. And if you have a regularly washed vehicle that isn't covered in a 1/4 inch of mud, that's really not necessary. And you're putting chemicals that are way too harsh on your paint for no reason whatsoever.
So what you're saying is we foam and then we break everything down. And at that point, it's safer to use a hose or a pressure washer to then spray it all off versus just spraying it all off before putting soap on there. Can you just talk about
right.
Why? Because I hear a lot of people be like, you guys are overthinking this. It's just washing a car. Just foam it on and wash the car, or just spray it down and then foam it and wash. Yeah. What's the logic behind the foam and then the rinse?
So the logic behind it is we're using a surfactant to emulsify that dirt, to break it down, to get it off the surface, so that when we do rinse, there's some lubrication there and we're taking it off. And yes, we've been called overthinkers, when in reality, if you watch a lot of other YouTube channels, we are definitely the underthinkers of the crowd, in the sense that we try to simplify things as much as possible while maintaining safety for your paint.
I would argue, Ivan, that you actually have overthought everything.
Yeah.
To oversimplify everything. Like, no one has more intricately examined and analyzed this industry. You're always thinking about it. You're always studying. You're always in R&D. I know this about you. But the whole goal is, how do I make this as simple as possible and just get rid of all the nonsense?
Right. We want to make it simple. We want to make it repeatable, and we want you to have fun doing it.
Yeah.
So that's where the chemical comes in. Now, we've pre-foamed or applied rinseless wash. We've rinsed it away, carrying the grit away from the surface. Very important. Then we're left with traffic film. And there are people that want, or that aspire to do, a touchless car wash. When you go through a touchless car wash, a commercial one, they use very harsh chemicals and very, very high pressure water, and your car still doesn't come out clean. In our driveways or in our shops, with chemicals and just a regular pressure washer, it's not going to happen. we are going to make the car look better, but it'll never be as clean as a contact wash. But a lot of people are afraid of the contact wash because it can scratch the paint. And yes, it can scratch the paint if you're not following safe practices. And one of those safe practices is something that's been taught for years, and that's the 2-bucket method. But the 2-bucket method has a couple flaws. One of the major flaws is how they prep up to that point. So we've talked about the foam, rinse, and now we're foaming again. A lot of people, what they will do is foam on the car, then using their 2-bucket method, take their wash mitt and go across the surface, then dunk it in just water, and then back in the soap, back on the paint. That wash media, the second you put it on the paint that still has grit on it and you move it across there, you are moving the grit across and potentially scratching the vehicle. And when we say scratches, it's not like Nick said in the intro with a key. We're talking very microscopic little scratches that over time will accumulate, like going through a car wash. You know, a brush type car wash, the first 5-6 times you go through, you're not going to really see a big, not a big deal. It's not all scratched up. But when you, over time that accumulates and then it starts looking bad after a while. So that's the same thing with the 2-bucket method. It's flawed in that sense. Now, if you want to do the foam, rinse, foam, and then the 2-bucket method, you can. But at that point, that second bucket really becomes redundant and unnecessary, and it's not helping you in any way.
Can I tell you where I do like the second bucket? Because the traditional 2-bucket method is you have your soapy wash bucket, and then you have just your water, and then you dunk it in the water first, and that's supposed to get it safely, get all the dirt off of it. Then you put it back into your sink, your perfect little sudsy wash bucket.
Yeah.
What I did recently, Ivan, and you're going to see a video of this because I'm sending it to you. You're going to critique my wash techniques. I actually put a bucket of rinseless wash on each side of the car when I washed my Subaru.
Yeah.
And it was an extra, I think, 1.5 ounces of rinseless for 3 gallons of water. So I used 3 ounces of rinseless as opposed to 1.5 ounces, which it's a hyper concentrated solution, right? You just do 1 ounce per 2 gallons of water, 1 capful per gallon. So it's really not a lot. And then because I knew you were going to be watching, I put 1 bucket on each side, and it was kind of nice.
Yeah. In my shop,
even as a solo operation, to have a bucket on each side of the car was kind of nice.
Yeah. In my shops, we always use a 2-bucket method, meaning 1 bucket on each side of the car. So, it's definitely a step saver. And you're out in a driveway that's not flat, so you can't really put wheels on your buckets. So that's a good way of doing it.
No, I mean, it's just something to think about. If you want to go 2-bucket, if you're like, I am a ride or die, I love the 2-bucket method, try this 2-bucket method.
Yeah.
Or try 1 bucket for your wash media, your legacy sponge, and then 1 for your wheel bucket. Yeah. With your wheels brushes.
Now, at this point, we've done the foam, rinse, foam. We've taken the grit off the vehicle. And no matter what wash media you're using, you have some of the same risks. So if you have grit on the surface, no matter what wash media you're using, you're going to be taking that grit and dragging it across the surface. Now, I have a pecking order, so to speak, of preferred wash medias. And this is from an engineering standpoint. It's not the feel standpoint. Some of them actually don't feel right. But anyways, just because of what we've been taught for decades. My favorite wash media is the sponge. And it's not just any sponge. It's not the grout sponge. It's not the sponge that you took from under the kitchen sink. It's not the loofah sponge from the shower. No, it is a dedicated, engineered, purpose-built sponge for washing. And it's not just for rinseless washing. It works with soap as well. Some of the older sponges that I designed didn't play well with soap. Foam has evolved. Everything in the world changes. Everything in the world gets better. Everything in the world evolves. And washing technology is one of those. So wash media, even though not a sexy term, but those are things that have evolved as well. So if you're still thinking back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, or even 2010, things have really changed. So the wash sponge that we have, our legacy sponge, is designed to work safely. And the way it does so, first of all, it has the slits in it. The slits are there to, if you do have a piece of grit, the way it works, sort of like siping on a tire, same idea, is that grit will get stuck between them, won't stay on the surface. If you drive over a gravel road, you might get a small piece of gravel stuck in your tire. It gets embedded between the tread, so now it's not rubbing on the asphalt surface. And you can have a rock in your tire be there for 6 weeks and you'll never hear it. Now, if the rock is too big, of course, you'll hear tick, 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 tick as you're driving down the road slowly. But if that rock is small enough, it's embedded up in there, you'll never hear it because it's actually never touching the road. So that is one way to visualize it. Next, the foam itself. The foam is an open cell structure, meaning that water can pass through it. Air can pass through it, soap can pass through it, rinseless can pass through it. But also the way it interacts with the dirt. So when we use the wash sponge with rinseless wash, because there's two different methods of using it. When we're using it with the rinseless wash, we put it on the verge of dripping. It's a phrase I've been, tagged too many times. And on that verge of dripping, what it means is a foam's natural state is to try to absorb stuff. When it's completely soggy, wet, it can't absorb anything. With the rinseless wash, we actually want it to absorb the rinseless wash that's already on the surface of the vehicle because we pre-spray. We want to absorb it off the surface. And as it's absorbing it, it's also lifting the dirt off of the surface into the sponge. Now, as soon as we return the sponge to the bucket and dunk it, now we've flooded the sponge. So when the sponge is flooded, it releases everything. And that's the beauty of the sponge. So think of it as a vacuum cleaner that picks up, and as soon as you're done vacuuming, it drops all the dirt. That's basically what we're doing. Now, if we are using the sponge with soap, we have a slightly different technique. Now we want it soaked because we want it to flush using the soap away from the surface as opposed to absorb the surface, because the soap reduces that absorbency. But what we're doing now with any wash media on soap is we're trying to flush. So whether you're using a wash mitt, a sponge, or a brush, yes, I did say a brush, on the surface, then you will see that. Now, this video is being recorded just a few days before our third birthday bash. And in that third birthday bash, we will be talking about a wash brush. And I'm sort of predicting here that we might have a bit of controversy around that. And that's fine, because we've been told for decades, never use a brush on paint. And that brush on paint is not something that it comes natural to any detailer. If you've been anywhere around detailing, it's not natural. You go to the car wash. There's usually some person at the beginning of the car wash, usually a student, trying to make ends meet, and they have a bucket, they have a brush on a stick, and without pre-rinsing or anything, they're attacking the front end of your vehicle to get those bugs off with that brush. They're
making the brush look bad, Ivan.
They're definitely making the brush look bad. But what a brush can do, and not any brush, once again, a proper flag-tipped brush that is soft and that is very dense. You want dense bristles because you don't want the bristles folding over. Because let's say this is every bristle. When you fold them over, if they fold far enough that the side of the bristle is now touching the paint as opposed to the flagging, that's when you can scratch the paint. And truck brushes, they've been around for decades, or even longer. Well, not longer than decades, but they've been around ever since we've been washing cars. The truck brushes are in the industry. They sort of work, but truckers, many of them take immense pride in their trucks, but some fleets, less so. So they're not really concerned about getting micro scratches on the paint. They're more concerned about having a clean truck. What we've done is I started the R&D process with a truck brush and then took it from there. Then I had a brush made that looked like a truck brush, but with the same bristles as our wheel and body brush, because we've proven, and many people have shown, how safe it is on paint. We call it the wheel and body brush because it is safe to use everywhere on the body of the car. But it's a little too small to wash a whole car with. A little, impractical to do so. And I know some people have done it. And I've seen videos on the internet of washing a whole car with a brush, and that's fine, you can do it. So we wanted something a little bigger. Now, what I realized with that brush is that small surface is fine. But when you're going with a larger surface, our brush is 8 inches wide. It's easy to dunk in the bucket, all that fun stuff. But what happens with the brush is if the bristles are or if the flagging on the bristle isn't long enough, we get that folding over phenomenon, and then we get the side of the bristle, the unflagged portion, contacting the paint. And that's what we're trying to avoid. The flagged portion is actually finer than any microfiber towel. And you'll notice I haven't talked about microfiber wash mitts yet. There's a reason for that. To me, and in my testing, and I've done extensive testing, not just with DIY, this was, many, many moons ago in our shops to get the safest wash possible on a vehicle. And wash mitts, whether they be the old-fashioned wool wash mitts, have you ever used one of those, Nick?
Never. I don't even know what those look like. I don't, or feel like.
Okay, you don't want to. And then we have the new. Well, there's the chenille mitts that came next. So we had the wool wash mitt, then the chenille mitts, which looks like a bunch of microfiber fingers sewn together. And you can get some really, really cheap ones, or you can get some very high quality ones. And it's, the construction of them that changes. The number of fingers and the proximity of those fingers, or the density. But then you have the wash pads and the multi-level, and I say multi-level because they have different lengths of strands all over wash pads that we see them in different colors and textures, but they all work similarly. We sell one on the website. Those work well with soap, but a microfiber is not good when grit is involved. So again, you need that foam rinse foam to safely use any sort of fibrous wash material, whether that fiber be microfiber, whether it be chenille, whether it be wool, et cetera, et cetera.
What's the significance? What's the significance of that second foam or that second chemical? So we talk about chemical rinse chemical, foam rinse foam. Right. Why foam or chemical, basically put rinseless wash? Why do that a second time after the rinse?
Lubrication, extra lubrication, more lubrication, enough lubrication. You can never have too much. Well, you can. I mean,
but we're mitigating against scratch.
Foam,
we're mitigating against scratch risk, so lubrication is a good thing.
Yeah, lubrication is a great thing. And what we're doing is now, let's say the car were dry. Okay, so we did the first foaming, we rinsed it off. There's just water on the surface, and we let it air dry just for fun. When we take that wash media, now we're putting it on a dry surface, and we're relying on the wash media to wet the surface. Water itself, while it works, not as efficient as rinseless or Incredible Suds. So pick one. And usually the foam cannon, if you're efficient with it, I've seen Nick sometimes go a little overboard, but if you're efficient with it, if you fill your foam cannon up with 32 ounces or 1 liter of water, the 30 milliliters or 1 ounce of soap, go around the vehicle, you have time to go around it twice before having to refill the foam cannon. So normally, even large trucks, we're able to normally get around them twice. So you're only filling it up once. It's not that big of a deal. And if you're not using a foam cannon, then there are the garden type sprayers that create foam. They actually work. You're not going to get that thick shaving cream foam that we so desire and looks good on TV, but at the same time, it's doing exactly what it needs to do. It's putting a nice foamy, it's again, not thick foam, but you're getting the lubrication on there, and that's what we want. So now we're taking our wash media out of the bucket. So the bucket that either has rinseless or soap in it, putting it on the surface that either has rinseless or soap on it. And now we have a doubling up of the lubrication.
Is there a little bit, I always think there's cleaning power with that second foam.
Yes.
Is it adding more cleaning power?
Yeah, it's helping break down the traffic film. So the first one got rid of the grit, followed by the rinse. And no, you don't need a pressure washer. A good garden hose rinse, when you have the emulsification, and emulsification means it's breaking it down. It's lifting it off the surface. So what we're doing is lifting that grit off the surface. When we've lifted it off the surface, now we can flush it away. And if we're just trying to flush something that's dry on the surface off, it's not going to happen. And we've seen it many times. You've seen it in our videos. You've seen it in other people's videos with the pre-spray. When you go back afterwards and spray the bugs on the front end of the car, because we're in that time of year, most of them will go away without even touching it, just with the rinse, because the soap or the rinseless or the chemical has done its job. And that job is to break down the dirt, lift it off the surface so it can be flushed away, whether it be with a pressure washer or a garden hose. And no, it's not just the pressure washer doing the job. Some people have that thought and say, oh, it's just the pressure washer. No, if you really want to do a test, foam a section of the vehicle, rinse it off like you normally would, then let it air dry, and you will see just what has happened. And the surface will still look dirty, but when you feel it, there'll be no grit left behind. There'll just be the traffic film, which is caused by road oils, exhaust from other vehicles, coolant leaks, you name it, all this sort of stuff that comes out of our cars, even the asphalt itself that comes up and gets sort of a greasy film over the car. And that is where a touchless car wash really falls flat on its face, because it can break some of that down, but not all of it.
Gotcha. So we foam rinse foam for a reason. We're trying to mitigate against scratch risk. It sounds to me, Ivan, that it's so dependent upon technique. Like if you use a microfiber or chenille wash mitt, even though that's not Ivan's favorite choice, if you foam rinse foam first, you're going to be okay, right? If you have a safe brush, our perfectly safe brush, which again, we're recording this, but I think this will come out after the live, so people will know about it. It's called the perfectly safe brush. It's a safe method, but you want to do the foam rinse foam or the chemical rinse chemical first.
Right.
We always want to set ourselves up for safety, and it's all about technique, right?
Yeah, it's all about technique. You know, you can, if you were to just foam a car and take any wash media to that car, whether it be microfiber, whether it be the most luxurious wool mitt in the world, the sponge, the brush, it doesn't matter. Yes, you are going to cause damage to the surface because you're taking grit that's on the surface and dragging it across the surface. That's where we have that. But there's one other area where people are damaging their car without even realizing it. And that's the drying stage.
Drying, Ivan, I've always felt like is the most dangerous time for scratch risk.
Yeah. And it has little to do with the towel itself. So we have our drying blanket, which is a phenomenal towel. We have and we'll be coming back in stock soon, thankfully. Nick, you should be getting one this week, hopefully just before the live, so you can show the new packaging and stuff. They're on the way.
New packaging is going to look amazing. It's going to be a limited run for this live. I know this is airing after the live, so I'm explaining it as if it already happened, even though it hasn't happened yet. Anyway, the packaging from all the renderings we've seen looks absolutely gorgeous, and we're excited to get the drying blanket back in stock. You know, thousands are on the way. This limited run we think is going to sell out pretty quick.
There's a good chance, yeah. But anyways, that being said, we have the drying blanket. We have from our friends at the House of Rags, the Diva towel. Even your standard pearl weave towel can be used to dry the car. It's not really a concern. You just want something that's very absorbent. Where people get into trouble with the towels has nothing to do with the towel. And if their wash was successful, they did a good wash on the vehicle, then there's nothing there. We're not in a hermetically sealed bubble. So there's always dust in the air. And that dust, as we're drying the car, we don't see the dust landing on the surface because the surface is wet. That dust is there. So we need a drying lubricant. And the other thing, or drying aid, as the industry calls it, but the other thing that the drying aid or drying lubricant does is breaks the surface tension of the water, making it easier to take away, and also provides additional lubrication. So that towel, if you happen to be pressing a little too hard on it, because there are fibers, a microfiber towel, if you take a damp microfiber towel, or a dry, even worse, a dry microfiber towel on a perfectly polished surface and drag it across, you are going to scratch the paint. And microfiber is extremely soft. Everything is there to make it safe. Nonetheless, it is a fiber. It is an abrasive. There are some people that would tell you never use microfiber on leather because it's too abrasive. So even though we think of it as this super soft surface, every time we're touching our paint, there's a risk. So using a drying aid, we're putting a slight film of whatever, sealant, wax, whatever drying aid you want to use, ceramic, between the towel and the surface of the paint. And that little film is enough to provide protection afterwards too. We're usually, a good drying aid should increase your gloss levels, maybe give you a bit of protection, et cetera, et cetera. So that is doing that. Now we have one drying aid in our line. We have 5 things we can use as a drying aid. we have, first of all, rinseless wash. And if you washed with a rinseless wash and didn't rinse afterwards, because that's the whole goal of a rinse less wash, you're rinsing less, you don't need a drying aid. The drying aid is already on the surface in the form of that rinseless wash. So the emulsifiers, the lubrication that's built in, the few little polymers that we have are going to assist in the drying, make it safer, but not leave anything on the surface. And for some people, that's very important, especially before doing a ceramic coating. So you don't want anything left on the surface. Our first line of attack when it comes to a drying aid is our rinseless wash. Now, a rinseless wash, if you washed with rinseless and you didn't rinse afterwards, hence the term rinse less, now you already have your drying aid on the surface. And some people want to have nothing left behind. They either want their ceramic coating to shine through and be itself, or they don't want to interfere with a potential ceramic coating or sealant they're putting on the vehicle afterwards. So our rinseless wash leaves nothing behind other than a nice clean surface. There's no gloss enhancers. There's no polymers. There are polymers in our formula, but the surfactants win in the end. So the surface is clean. There's nothing on it. Next up, we have our waterless wash. And not many people use our waterless wash as a drying aid, but it does work quite well, actually. And it actually provides a lot of lubrication at the same time because it is designed for that. So if your wash technique may not be up to par, or you went through a touch-free car wash and you're wanting to clean up afterwards, the extra surfactants and emulsifiers that are in the waterless wash make that process safer. The next one is ceramic gloss. Now, ceramic gloss, really phenomenal one. It's probably one of our best smelling products. I think it's Nick's favorite when it comes to odor, or darn close if it isn't.
Yes, sir.
But anyways, extremely great drying aid, simple to use, fun, smells nice, and provides a nice durable finish when you're done. Now, after ceramic gloss, we have C6 Mist and C6 Mist and quick beads, because C6 Mist is sort of a hybrid or a double use. It can be used as a spray and wipe, just like ceramic gloss. So your surface is wet, you spray a bit of mist on the surface, then you dry. Now, the other way of using it is you spray C6 Mist or quick beads on the surface, just lightly, not too much. More is never better with us. You should know that by now. It's been 3 years or close to 3 years. So it's been a constant with us. But anyways, more is not better. You spray it on the surface, then you use your pressure washer or garden hose to activate it. And by activating it, we're using the water to spread it over the surface to make sure it's everywhere. And in doing so, we are leaving a bit of uncured quick beads or uncured C6 Mist on the surface, and that is our drying aid. So even though we've rinsed it, we're not dealing with a water-only surface. It's still there. And the towel is what's finishing that. So with C6 Mist, you have a product that can be used as a drying aid, as a rinsing aid, and it's not there to leave long-term protection behind. It has a few gloss enhancers in it, which is fun, but don't expect C6 Mist to protect your paint. Ceramic gloss and quick beads, though, yes, they are very good protection. So they work in that sense. So in conclusion, you want to do a chemical first. That chemical breaks down and helps emulsify the dirt on the surface. Then we rinse the dirt away. Once we've rinsed that dirt away, now we apply the chemical, be it foam, be it rinseless again. Then we do our contact wash. No pressure, please. With the wash media, you want to be dunking it and making sure that it's nice and lubricated and clean. And inspect your wash media as you're going. Sometimes you might pick something up that you didn't even realize during the pre-foaming stage. So just be safe with that. Then from there, we rinse off the soap if we're using soap. If we're using rinseless, we're done at that point. Then we dry. We can use any of our drying aids, the 5 that I mentioned, to make it safe to dry. And then from there, you should have a nice, safe, and easy wash experience.
Ivan, let's say they messed it all up and they do have scratches on their paint. They might want to know how to polish. I do believe we have a video explaining polishing for beginners. If folks have never done it before, it's a great tutorial, and it'll definitely get you some shiny paint.